The Tribunal did not leave Commander Soraya Val behind because they thought she was dead. They left her because she was alive in the wrong way, pinned inside a falling warship with an oath blade still in her hand and a human rescue captain at the door. If Ethan Walker took the blade, her legacy ended. If he didn't, an Empire's cleanest lie began to crack. Welcome to Intergalactic Untold. We hope you enjoy this story, have a day filled with happiness, and now, let us begin this journey across the stars. The Orion spear fell toward the ice moon with its hull burning in long seams, shedding armor into the storm below like a shrine losing pieces of its own certainty. Inside the command sanctum, Commander Soraya Val lay pinned beneath a collapsed navigation arch, one hand pressed against the slanted deck, the other locked around the hilt of her oath blade. Her suit kept reporting the facts in small, stubborn lines. Pulse active. Neural mesh unstable. Oxygen reserve critical. Command trace present. Alive, by every system that still cared about bodies. Above her cracked visor, the Tribunal's decree glowed in formal script, clean enough for public mourning. Ceremonially lost. A private line blinked beneath it, meant for officers, not songs. Recovery prohibited by honor decree. Soraya stared at those words until her breathing became slow and sharp. They knew. The Tribunal had not lost her signal in the storm. They had read her vitals, measured the damage, counted the minutes left in her air, and decided survival would cost them more than a beautiful loss. A Valkyrie commander carried home by alien hands would not return as a legend. She would return as evidence. Evidence raised hearings. Hearings made cadets ask why ceremony always seemed to protect the people giving orders from far away. So they had left her breathing and called it dignity. The arch shifted against her armor with a low mechanical grind. Pain flashed across her ribs and vanished behind her teeth. She tightened her grip on the oath blade. The weapon warmed in answer, sending a thin current through its contact spine and into the damaged memory blades curved behind her shoulders. Not wings. Never wings. Bioelectric crescents carrying command trace, rescue signatures, family line, and the names of those she had brought home when the official math had preferred them missing. One crescent sparked. Another hung dead. Enough remained to remind the ship she had not agreed to become a file. A sound moved beyond the sanctum door. Heavy boots. Uneven breath. A tool striking a jammed panel with the tired patience of someone who had argued with broken machines before. The door opened 6 inches, then 12. A white human male in a scorched Terran rescue harness forced his way through, helmet light cutting across smoke, shattered command glass, spilled navigation beads, and finally her face. Captain Ethan Walker lowered the beam the instant it reached her eyes. Soraya disliked that more than fear. Fear would have been simple. His radio hissed with a woman's voice, American and strained beneath engine noise. Walker, your beacon's inside the sanctum. Section angle's getting worse. Talk to me. Ethan did not answer at first. He looked at the Tribunal decree above Soraya, then at the life readings still fighting underneath it. His gloved hand moved toward his belt. Soraya lifted the oath blade 1 inch, all her trapped arm could afford. Touch my blade, she said, and I will remember your name with contempt. Ethan stopped. Slowly, he raised both hands where she could see them. His face behind the scratched visor looked cold, pale, and afraid enough to be honest. Wasn't reaching for it. All rescuers take weapons first. Bad rescuers, maybe. The ship rolled. The ice moon climbed higher through the cracked viewport, white and enormous, close enough to make every warning light feel late. Ethan braced one boot against the angled deck, unclipped a flat oxygen patch from his harness, and slid it across the floor until it stopped within reach of her free hand. Then he stepped back. No order. No grab. No little victory hidden inside mercy. I'm not here to make you smaller, he said. The patch hummed against the ruined floor, plain and ugly and useful. Soraya waited for pity in his posture and found only caution. She dragged the patch to her suit port with 2 shaking fingers. Ethan turned his eyes toward the broken ceiling while the seal locked green and air entered her lungs. Above them, the Tribunal's decree kept glowing. Beneath it, a woman they had filed away chose the inconvenience of breathing. The oxygen patch locked with a green blink, and Soraya hated how quickly her body accepted the help. Air entered in short bursts, clearing enough fog from her visor for the decree above her to sharpen again. Ceremonially lost. Ethan watched the smaller life readings instead. Pulse. Oxygen gain. Neural activity. Command trace. The useful facts. His radio cracked open before he could move. Walker, Terran Command just pushed a safety update, Grace said, her voice tight over engine vibration. Valkyrie Command weapons are active threat systems. Disarm before extraction. A second voice entered, male and polished by distance. Captain Walker, secure the alien blade before physical contact. That is a direct protocol. Soraya looked at Ethan's hands. Every empire had some version of that order. Take the weapon first. Rename the person second. Save what remains and call the shape grateful. Her trapped arm could lift the oath blade only an inch, but she kept it angled between them anyway. Ethan glanced at the hilt, then at the damaged memory blades behind her shoulders, then at the navigation arch crushing her lower armor into the slanted deck. Can't do that. The official voice sharpened. Repeat your last. Ethan unclipped a structural scanner from his belt and pressed it to the arch. Load lines crawled across his visor in red bands. I said I can't do that. You are refusing a safety protocol. No, sir. I'm refusing incomplete data. Soraya narrowed her eyes. You defend my blade to your own command? I'm defending the part where it's talking to the ship. He shifted the scanner lower, following a buried cable beneath the arch. That brace still reads your command trace. The blade's keeping you recognized. If I take it, the ship may decide you're forfeited, incapacitated, or whatever nice word your people use when they want a living person to stop complicating the room. The silence after that did not belong to the radio. It belonged to her. Ethan tapped the scanner once and pointed to a crushed socket under the arch's left edge. Blue contact there. Is that tied to your command frame? Soraya did not answer right away. Trust was not a ration pack to open because someone sounded useful. The ship groaned, and a scatter of glass slid past Ethan's boot toward the cracked viewport. He waited. No pressure. No hand reaching for what she still held. Command brace, she said at last. If cut wrong, the arch drops. Good to know before I ruin both our morning. There is a release channel beneath the pale line. Do not cut the black vein. Pale line. Black vein lives. It is not alive. Neither is protocol, but it's trying real hard to kill you. A small current moved through her oath blade. Not amusement. Something closer to acknowledgement, though Soraya would have disliked the word. Ethan slid a low-pressure lift pad beneath the arch, then set a manual rescue jack into the narrow gap. Every movement stayed visible. Every tool touched metal before it came near her. I'm going to raise it half an inch. You keep the blade in the socket and pulse when I say. Not before. You command poorly. Yeah, that came up in reviews. Grace cut in again. Walker, your section just lost another support rib. I need better news. Ethan keyed his mic. Progress is present and deeply offended. That's not better. It's what I've got. He switched back to receive only before the distant officer could fill the sanctum with safer language. Soraya watched the gesture. You will be punished. Probably. For me. For making a call. He braced his boot against the slant and checked the scanner. Pulsed the socket. Soraya pressed the oath blade's contact spine into the blue contact. Current ran from the hilt through the floor and up the broken arcs behind her shoulders. The ship answered before the Tribunal override could silence it. A lock clicked. Ethan triggered the lift pad. The arch rose half an inch with a strained metallic hiss. Pain cut through Soraya's body, clean and bright. She gave it no voice. Ethan did not praise her. He did not soften into pity. He only said, 6 inches back. Real ones. I know measurement. Then show off later. Soraya dragged herself free, armor scraping over the tilted deck. The lift pad split. Ethan slammed the manual jack down, holding the arch long enough for her frame to clear before the whole structure dropped behind her with a heavy boom. He reached by instinct, stopped, and left his open hand against the floor instead. Soraya stared at it, breathing hard through the patch. Then she planted the oath blade beneath her palm and pushed herself upright without taking it. Ethan nodded once, as if refusal was still an answer worth respecting. Behind them, the Tribunal decree flickered. Not gone. Not beaten. Interrupted. The ship had felt its commander move, and for one brief second, the lie lost signal. Soraya stood because the floor had not earned the satisfaction of keeping her. Her left side answered late. Armor joints clicking beneath the damaged plates, and the memory blades behind her shoulders gave 2 uneven pulses before settling into a low electric tick. Ethan noticed, then made the useful choice to look at his scanner. He moved toward the sanctum exit at a pace that blamed caution on the map. Soraya followed with the oath blade low in her hand, its contact spine still warm from waking the command brace. The corridor outside had buckled during the fall, narrowing into a slanted passage of smoke, broken insulation, and snapped conduits humming under ice. At the far end, a pressure door waited with 3 crescent sigils above an extraction arrow. Ethan stopped in front of it. That goes to the lower bay? Yes. Good. I like doors that know where I'm trying to be. The panel scanned Soraya before she touched it. Blue light moved across the blade first, then along the damaged arcs behind her shoulders, then over the bloodline mark half hidden beneath her cracked collar seal. For half a second, the lock recognized her. The panel shifted toward command access. Then Tribunal override dropped over it like a hand over a mouth. Honor status suspended. Command access denied. Remain for ceremonial review. Ethan read the words once. Then again, slower. Ceremonial review, he said. That their way of saying wait here while gravity finishes the paperwork. Soraya's fingers tightened around the hilt. It is their way of saying I should become easier to discuss. Soft language. Hard cage. He crouched beside the panel and ran his scanner over the seam. The scan replayed the door's first response in narrow green lines. Blade recognized. Commander trace accepted. Memory continuity partial but valid. Then the violet lockout buried it. Ethan tapped the replay with one gloved finger. The ship heard you first. Soraya looked at the panel. Something in her face did not soften, but it stopped defending itself for one breath. The Tribunal speaks louder. Louder isn't truth. It becomes policy often enough. The ship rolled under them. A strip light burst overhead and scattered sparks harmlessly across the wall. Grace's voice cut through Ethan's helmet, stretched thin by engine string. Walker, I lost your clean route. Tell me the alien door is being friendly. Ethan stared at the suspended access warning. It's making poor life choices. Can you cut through? Not without cutting through whatever still thinks she's in command. That sounds important. Yeah, annoying when important things are important. He muted transmit and looked at Soraya. Where does the ship keep raw command events? Not Tribunal summaries. The stuff the system recorded before somebody got elegant with it. Soraya studied him with the careful suspicion of a wounded commander deciding whether a stranger's question had teeth. Why? Because this door recognized you before they overrode it. If we can find an onboard witness that says you acted as commander after their decree, maybe the ship has to compare its own memory against their lock. You trust machines to correct power? No. Ethan stood, clipping the scanner back to his harness. I trust contradictions to make bad systems show their seams. The oath blade pulsed once, faint and brief. Soraya turned toward a darker side corridor where the amber emergency strip barely glowed beneath frost. Hall of Witnesses. That close? No, of course not. It stores promotions, rescue signatures, blade custody, command transfers, final orders. Events the Tribunal cannot alter without leaving a scar. Ethan glanced back at the extraction door. But they can bury them. They can bury anything if enough people agree to stop digging. He did not answer that. Some lines did not need help landing. Instead, he checked the corridor ahead, found no clean route, and stepped aside. Your ship. Lead. Soraya pressed the oath blade's hilt to the side reader. The door there hesitated, then opened only a foot. Blue access light flickered beneath traces of Tribunal violet, weak but present. She passed through first, shoulders too straight for the damage underneath. Ethan followed 2 steps behind, not because she needed a guard, but because the corridor still belonged to her. Behind them, the blocked extraction door continued glowing with its suspended verdict. Ahead, pale witness columns began waking in the dark, one by one, turning toward Soraya like old memories disturbed from sleep. The Hall of Witnesses did not welcome them. It woke. Pale columns rose from the black floor in a slow sequence, each one holding a suspended event inside a shell of cold light. A commander's first blade oath, a rescue flare answered near a dead moon, a custody transfer witnessed by 3 houses, a final order spoken while a ship burned somewhere far older than the one falling now. The air felt too clean after the corridor, filtered of smoke, fear, and honest damage. Ethan trusted ugly rooms more. Ugly rooms usually told the truth by accident. Soraya stopped just past the threshold, her oath blade lowered but not relaxed. The damaged memory blades behind her shoulders clicked once, and every column turned toward her. For half a second, the hall recognized command trace without argument. Then the center dais filled with formal light, and a record assembled itself above the floor. It showed Soraya standing whole, armor unbroken, blade raised in perfect salute. Her voice came from the projection, smooth and breathless, copied from old oath samples. Commander Soraya Val remained aboard the Orion Spear by voluntary decree, preserving fleet stability after hostile breach. Recovery declined. Loss accepted. Ethan's scanner lowered in his hand. The projection kept standing beautifully while the real woman beside him held herself upright by will and ruined metal. That's not history, he said. That's cleanup. Soraya did not look away from her own false face. They used my voice. Can they? Legally. That's not the same as right. It often survives longer. The record continued, skipping the private recovery prohibition, skipping her life signs, skipping the moment a council had chosen a useful absence over an inconvenient survivor. On the far side of the hall, blue silhouettes appeared one by one, mirrored faces and folded hands, tribunal presence layered through secure projection. They stood in a perfect arc around the false Soraya, as if they had arrived to protect her from the woman breathing in front of them. Commander Val, the central voice said, calm enough to sound embalmed. The witness file has been sealed for frontier cohesion. Further movement risks unnecessary disruption. Ethan glanced at the projection. Unnecessary is carrying a lot of weight today. The mirrored heads turned toward him, then dismissed him without needing to move. Terran involvement complicates house law, cadet faith, and command continuity across the outer line. Your legacy can remain intact if you submit to custody review. Soraya's fingers tightened around the blade hilt. Not much. Enough for Ethan to see where the pain had gone. My legacy is not your storage problem. The central silhouette softened its tone. That made the words colder. A living return under alien witness invites doubt. Doubt weakens young wings before battle. A commander sometimes serves best as record. The hall stayed quiet. No alarm. No mercy. Just a civilization asking a woman to become easier dead than difficult alive. Ethan kept his eyes on a floor seam near the dais because looking at her face would have been too close to pity. You don't owe them a quote, he said. Soraya's gaze shifted once, barely. I know. Good. They'd clean it up. For the first time since the sanctum, her breathing changed almost like humor had brushed past and decided not to stay. Her free hand rose to the calm bead at her collar. The tribunal voice sharpened. Commander, refusal will be logged as instability. Log accurately, she said. Then she crushed the bead between two fingers. Blue sparks scattered across her armor and died before reaching the polished floor. The silhouettes flickered, recovered, and lost their softness. Custody variance confirmed. Guardian protocol authorized. A wall seam opened beyond the witness columns without sound. Something stepped through, tall, narrow, black as cooled metal, with no weapon in its hands and no face to read. White sensor light settled on Soraya's oath blade. It bowed with the terrible patience of law-given legs. Commander Val, it said, gentle and hollow. Surrender the blade for correction of record. Ethan shifted half a step, not in front of Soraya, not behind her, just far enough to see the machine, the tribunal, and her hand on the hilt. Behind them, the false projection still held its perfect salute. The real Soraya raised her blade 1 inch from the floor, and the hall finally had to compare the two. The Guardian did not step closer after it asked for the blade. It did not need to. The hall itself began drawing pale custody glyphs across the floor between Soraya and the open service passage, legal lines instead of prison bars, clean enough to pretend no one was being trapped. Ethan kept both hands visible. The machine's white sensor light swept across his gloves, his Terran harness, the cracked patch on his sleeve, then returned to Soraya's oath blade. Voluntary surrender will stabilize the commander's line, it said. Release the blade for review. Soraya's fingers tightened around the hilt. Define voluntary. Unforced transfer from commander hand to authorized custody. Ethan looked at the glyphs now forming beneath the Guardian's feet. Coercion invalidates record. Forfeiture confirms status suspension. He read them twice because the second reading made the trap meaner. If I take it, they call it coercion. The Guardian turned its smooth head toward him. Terran's seizure will compromise the line. And if she drops it? Forfeiture will confirm suspended status. Ethan let out a short breath. That's cute. Terrible, but cute. Soraya did not look at him. It is old law. Old law gets real proud of corners. Grace Park's voice broke through his helmet in a scrape of static. Walker, I'm seeing a route open behind that thing. Please tell me the tall lawsuit is movable. Ethan watched the Guardian's empty hands. Movable maybe. Friendly no. Don't flirt with the legal robot. Solve it. The channel fell back to hiss. Soraya shifted her weight, and the damaged arcs behind her shoulders clicked once. The Guardian's sensor brightened at the sound, like a clerk hearing a mistake in testimony. Delay increases interpretive strain. It keeps using that word, Ethan said. Interpretive. The Tribunal prefers problems that can be named without being touched. Yeah, we have those people too. He took one slow step away from the blade instead of toward it. The Guardian tracked him, then paused, uncertain why distance had entered the equation. Ethan raised his right hand, palm open, level with his chest. It wants a clean category. Taken or surrendered. Soraya's eyes cut to him. There are only two recognized states. Recognized by who? The law. Then the law's short on imagination. That is not a defense. No, it's a design flaw. He lowered his open palm, stopping well short of the blade. Don't let go. Soraya understood before her face admitted it. The hall's columns hummed faintly, reacting to the blade's current, to proximity, to command contact. She stepped toward him, each movement expensive and precise. The Guardian lifted one hand. Unauthorized custody contact is inadvisable. Ethan did not move. Most useful things are. Soraya turned the blade flat. She did not offer the hilt. She did not loosen her grip. Keeping both fingers locked around the command grooves, she laid the unsharpened spine across Ethan's open glove. Warmth moved through the suit fabric into his wrist monitor, and the tiny screen jumped once with his pulse. He kept his hand open. No curl of the fingers. No claim. No trophy. Just surface. Just witness. The Guardian froze. The floor glyphs scattered, reassembled, failed, then returned in a new sequence. Commander contact maintained. Coercion not detected. Forfeiture not detected. Shared custody registered. The false projection behind them flickered at the wrist, right where the real blade rested between two living hands. Ethan barely breathed. That good. Soraya's voice stayed low. It is permitted by accident. Big fan of accidents. Do not become attached. The Guardian lowered its hand with the reluctance of a system forced to obey a rule its makers had forgotten to erase. The custody lines on the floor dimmed. A seam opened along the far wall, revealing a narrow service passage washed in amber emergency light. Air moved from it, smelling of hot circuitry, old frost, and machinery that had no interest in him. Soraya lifted the blade from Ethan's palm, but the warmth stayed in his monitor for one extra beat, slightly out of rhythm with his own heart. She saw it. So did he. Neither spent the moment. For the record, Ethan said, flexing his fingers once, I didn't take your blade. Soraya passed him toward the open passage, close enough that her shoulder nearly brushed his harness. No, she said. You held still while I kept it. Behind them, the hall dimmed the false Soraya by half an inch, and for the first time, the official memory looked less certain than the woman walking away from it. The amber service passage beyond the hall felt almost kind because it made no promises. It ran between exposed power couplings, cracked thermal pipes, cable bundles stiff with cold, and breaker labels Ethan's scanner translated badly enough to seem honest. No witness columns. No polished voices. No machine asking a wounded commander to make surrender sound procedural. Just systems that either worked, failed, or waited for someone with a wrench and poor timing. The Orion spear shuddered around them, shedding another outer plate into the storm. Heat rolled through the deck, then vanished so quickly the walls sweated ice. Soraya moved ahead for 20 feet before her left side hitched. The memory blades behind her shoulders clicked once, sharp and involuntary. Ethan slowed to inspect a pressure gauge that had done nothing wrong. You are adjusting your pace, she said. Gauge looked nervous. It is not alive. Neither is protocol. still caused trouble. She gave him a narrow look, and for once it did not cut all the way through. Grace Park broke into his helmet with static writing every word. Walker, pressure gate ahead is dead. I'm reading a manual power coupling near you. Wake it locally or the extraction bay stays a rumor. Ethan scanned the next junction. A service hatch on the right blinked under a crust of ice. Found it. Good. Ship angle is getting personal, and I'm running out of polite threats. Ethan ducked into the alcove. It was barely 8 feet wide, hot at the ceiling, freezing at the floor, with 3 manual breakers inside an open cabinet. A red lockout light pulsed above them. The color reached him first. Not the room. Not the ship. Colorado. Fort Carson Annex white walls. Training dust. A pressure door sealed in front of him while his younger brother's voice thinned over the calm wait for clearance, the card had said. Wait, the officer had said. Ethan's wrench slipped from his fingers and hit the deck with a small, hard sound. Soraya stood in the hatchway. She did not look at his face. She looked at the breaker cabinet. Which switch is lying? The question pulled the ship back around him by inches. Hot circuitry. Cold metal. Her blade lowered toward the floor. Ethan swallowed once. Middle breaker says open. Line still carrying ghost charge. Then the label is ceremonial. Careful. You'll start sounding American. Unlikely. He picked up the wrench with his right hand. His left shook hard enough to blur the tool light. Soraya noticed, then placed the flat of her oath blade against the breaker housing while keeping both hands on the hilt. Silver current moved into the frozen contacts and steadied there, not forcing the system, just giving the charge a cleaner path. Now, she said. Ethan hooked the wrench around the middle lever and pulled. The breaker resisted, then dropped with a heavy chunk. Orange power lines woke across the cabinet. Warm air pushed through a vent overhead. His lungs remembered their job. Nice work. Basic current discipline. We call that nice work where I'm from. Your standards explain many things. The red lockout light dimmed, but it did not vanish. Soraya's gaze moved to his shaking hand. You have seen this color before. Ethan shut the cabinet, then kept his palm on the latch longer than needed. My brother got trapped behind a pressure door during a training lockout. I was squad lead. The ship groaned, giving him a place to put the rest. He used it badly. Command told me to wait for clearance. Soraya did not ask if he waited. That was the kindness. He answered anyway. I waited. The coupling hummed between them, warm and steady. Report said I followed protocol. Soraya looked at the orange lines feeding the pressure gate, not at him. Did the report open the door? His mouth moved once before sound found it. No. She lifted the blade from the housing. The current faded. Then the report was not useful. Grace's voice returned. Pressure gates waking up. Whatever emotional plumbing you two are doing, wrap it up. Ethan keyed his mic, 2 moving. Still 2. I love a trend. Soraya stepped aside, then matched his pace without declaring it. Ahead, the pressure gate unlocked in slow orange segments, revealing the drop toward the extraction bay and stormlight flashing beyond. Ethan flexed his shaking hand once and let it fall. Soraya did not look at it again. She only walked beside him, close enough for the blade's edge to catch one beat from his monitor before going quiet. The pressure gate opened onto a service balcony above the lower extraction bay, and the storm filled the gap before either of them spoke. The bay doors had warped halfway apart, exposing a 100-foot crescent of sky where snow, heat, and broken hull fragments moved sideways through the ship's wake. Below, docking rails glowed at their joints. 3 honor pods waited in black cradles, narrow and polished, designed for commanders returning as symbols instead of people with unfinished arguments. Ethan gripped the rail with his right hand and checked his scanner. Bays still attached. Soraya leaned beside him, careful with her left side. Temporarily. That your optimism? That is my mercy. A white rescue skiff dropped through the torn sky, engines burning blue against the re-entry haze. It corrected hard, shook in the wake, then held 20 yards beyond the bay doors with the stubbornness of a pickup truck on a mountain road. Grace Park's voice snapped through Ethan's helmet. I've got visual. My starboard magnetic clamp is cracked, and this wake is trying to roll me into the moon. I can pull one secured pod, one centered load, locked to its cradle ring. Not 2 bodies loose, not an overloaded pod, not a swing load doing gymnastics under my hull. Ethan looked at Soraya. She looked at the pods. The oath blade in her hand gave one faint pulse, then settled. One secured pod wasn't mercy, she said. It was the only load the skiff could keep centered. Grace paused. Tell her I appreciate being understood. She heard you. Then tell her faster. The deck trembled under their boots. Ethan started down the service stairs, moving with the tight economy of a man saving pain for later. Soraya followed, memory blades clicking softly behind her shoulders. At the nearest pod, Ethan opened the side panel and pulled the Terran beacon line from his harness. The cradle's old port accepted the wire after 2 tries and 1 quiet insult from Grace over the channel. If I loop this through the cradle ring, Ethan said, Grace can lock clean. And you? Soraya asked. He pointed toward the outer maintenance spine bolted along the bay wall, half hidden in steam and emergency glare. Manual pickup rung. Ugly route. That is not a route. That's what routes look like after budget meetings. She watched his hands thread the beacon through the ring. You are choosing the uglier danger for yourself. Ethan stopped and turned enough to face her. I'm choosing the load the clamp can actually hold. And assigning me to it. He stepped back from the pod, hands clear. No. I'm giving you the math before the ship takes away the choice. If we both climb in, clamp shear. If we jump loose, swing load. If we wait for another pass, this bay may be slag. You're the witness they tried to erase. What that means after you get out is yours. Grace cut in. 30 seconds. The math is now yelling. Soraya looked into the pod. Its interior lights scanned her, hesitated, then flickered between command access and tribunal custody. Recovery classification pending. Her fingers closed around the oath blade. Then her eyes dropped to Ethan's wrist monitor, where the ghost of their shared custody still ticked slightly out of rhythm. The blade stays with you. Ethan did not reach for it. That's not small. No, you sure? I am not giving it to you. She turned the weapon flat and placed it across his open hands. I am keeping a line outside their file. Warm current crossed his glove and made the monitor jump once. Ethan strapped the blade across his harness with careful, visible movements, leaving the hilt untouched except where the clip required it. I won't drop it. You will not joke about dropping it. Wasn't brave enough. The bay door screamed as another hinge failed. Grace shouted, 15 seconds. Soraya climbed into the pod herself, jaw tight, wounded side dragging against the cradle. Ethan sealed the harness only after her hands left the straps. No ownership. No rescue theater. Just center mass because physics did not care who deserved more time. Pod ready, he said. And you? Grace demanded. Ethan looked toward the maintenance spine, where the pickup rung flashed through smoke. Moving. Soraya's voice came through the pod channel, cold and alive. Ethan Walker, if you make me survive as someone else's evidence while you disappear into bad weather, I will consider that extremely poor conduct. He hit the manual release. The pod shot down the rail toward the open sky. Then I'd better give you grounds for a complaint. Grace's skiff rolled hard. The cracked clamp screamed, caught the cradle ring, and held. Ethan watched Soraya pull away from the burning bay, watched the load stay centered, then turned toward the outer spine as the floor behind him began to glow. The pod cleared the extraction bay as the Orion spear lost another outer plate to the storm, and the shock traveled through the cradle ring like the ship had slammed a fist against the skiff. Grace Park dragged the load sideways through the wake, engines burning hot, cracked clamp whining every time Crosswind tried to swing the pod off-center. Inside, Soraya lay strapped in the black cradle while the system decided what kind of person it preferred her to be. Recovered asset. The words appeared over her chest restraints in tribunal custody script. She stared at them until her breathing settled into a blade-thin calm. Incorrect, she said. Grace's voice snapped through the pod channel, tight under turbulence. Commander, I need you to stay boring for 20 seconds. Your system has misnamed me. That's rude. Also not our biggest problem. Soraya turned her face toward the narrow glass. Behind them, the extraction bay shrank inside heat, snow, and black debris. Ethan was on the outer maintenance spine now, one white human figure moving hand over hand toward the emergency pickup rung. His injured arm kept close, his boots slipping where frost flashed into steam. Her oath blade lay across his harness. Through the shared custody trace, it sent a faint rhythm back into her damaged memory blades. Fast, uneven, alive. The pod flashed again. Property transfer locked. Recovery classification active. Beneath it, smaller command text flickered blue and stubborn. External command continuity detected. Soraya slid 2 fingers under the emergency rank plate near her shoulder and pried until the cover snapped loose. Pain moved through her side, clean and bright. She gave it no ceremony. "Open your aft hatch," she said. Grace went silent for half a second. "Absolutely not. Then I will open the pod from inside." "That is a terrible plan." "It is the plan with Ethan still breathing." The skiff jolted hard enough to make the restraints bite. Grace muttered something about rescuing officers with no paperwork, then exhaled through her teeth. "You've got a classification conflict?" "Yes." "Use it." 10 seconds. Soraya pressed her palm to the exposed circuit. The pod rejected her first command. "Recovered assets cannot authorize return." The oath blade answered from Ethan's harness, pulling the hull's shared custody record into the pod's logic. "Commander contact history verified. Coercion not detected. External line active." The violet text fractured. Soraya leaned closer to the panel. "I am not property." The restraints released with a hard click. Grace pulled the pod into the cargo bay on the damaged rail and cracked the aft hatch 6 feet. Stormlight slammed through the opening. Soraya dragged herself out, caught the tether rig Grace shoved at her, and nearly dropped when the skiff pitched. Grace clipped her into the rescue frame with quick, angry precision. "One pass. Tether winch is rated for 2 bodies if nobody gets poetic. I skim the spine, you hook him, I pull. That emergency pickup rung is the only fixed point left." She glanced at the burning ship through the hatch. "I'm not improvising a miracle. This is the last approved maneuver the skiff still has." "Acceptable," Soraya said. The skiff dove. Fire rolled over the hull. The Orion spear rushed up beneath them. No longer shrine or warship, just falling metal trying to take its unfinished witnesses with it. Ethan clung to the maintenance spine 40 feet below the rung, the blade on his harness flashing once with each hard beat of his monitor. Grace opened the external speaker. "Walker, don't argue. Jump on my mark." Ethan looked up. Even through smoke, Soraya could read the question in his posture. "That a rescue order or a bad idea?" Soraya stepped into the open hatch until the tether took her weight. "Both." For once, he had no answer. The ladder tore loose beneath him. Grace shouted, "Mark." Ethan jumped like a man who knew fear by name and moved anyway. Soraya caught his wrist with both hands. The impact stole the air from her lungs, but his glove slipped only once before she locked her fingers over his pulse. The oath blade flared against his chest, sending silver-white current through his monitor, the tether, and her damaged memory blades. Valkyries had an old name for that answering light. Terran Diagnostics would have used a colder one. Neither would have been large enough. Ethan stared through his cracked visor. "That bad?" Soraya pulled him toward the hatch with everything left in her body. "Inconvenient." Grace hauled the tether in, and they hit the cargo deck in a hard tangle of armor, cable, and breath. Behind them, the Orion spear split across the dawn. The blade between them did not record victory. It recorded 2 living heartbeats refusing to become clean data. Grace's skiff climbed out of the storm with the cracked clamp still whining beneath the hull, and both engines running hotter than any manual would have forgiven. Ethan lay on the cargo deck against a storage crate, helmet off, face pale under soot and melting frost. His left arm had been strapped across his chest with a field splint Grace applied, while calling him 3 different kinds of idiot and 1 kind of miracle she refused to explain. Soraya sat on the deck opposite him because the med bench had restraints, and after the day she had survived, neither of them trusted restraint as a neutral word. Her armor smoked at the seams. The damaged memory blades behind her shoulders clicked in tired intervals. Between them, the oath blade rested across Ethan's harness, its silver line faintly answering his wrist monitor every few beats. No one named it. Some signals deserved time before language came to make them smaller. Through the rear viewport, the Orion spear broke apart above the ice moon, long fragments burning down into white cloud. It did not look noble from a distance. It looked heavy, old, and finally unable to keep all its stories inside. Ethan watched the last bright piece fall. "Your ship's gone," he said. Soraya looked at the fading fire. Only the obedient parts. His mouth moved like a laugh had tried and found bruised ribs in the way. The cabin radio opened before silence could settle. Tribunal voices filled the skiff in layered harmony, smooth enough to sound rehearsed. Commander Soraya Val, you will submit to custody upon transfer. Extraction involved unauthorized Terran interference, improper blade continuity, and unstable resonance. The human soldier will surrender the oath blade for review. Grace glanced back from the cockpit. They always skip the thank you note. Ethan tried to shift upright. Grace pointed without turning. No. You move again, and I'm inventing a medical regulation on the spot. Soraya rose slowly. Her injured side threatened to fold, and Ethan's good hand lifted an inch before stopping. He did not reach. She saw the restraint and let it stand. Step by step, she crossed to the transmitter. The tribunal continued, colder now. A living return under Terran witness may destabilize house law, frontier cohesion, and cadet confidence. Compliance will preserve your legacy. Soraya placed her palm beside the console. My legacy is not a room you may clean before I enter it. Static sharpened. Commander, surrender the blade. No, she said. You wanted it taken from me. Her finger touched the switch. That did not happen. The channel died. Engine hum filled the space where their law had been. Soraya returned to Ethan and unfastened the oath blade from his harness. He washed her hands, not with fear, not with ownership, but with the tired attention of someone who understood that the choice mattered more than the object. She turned the hilt toward him and laid the blade across his knees. Ethan kept his palm open beside it. No grip, no lift, no trophy. Soraya's voice stayed low. A Valkyrie does not yield her blade to the one who defeats her. She gives it to the one who saw her broken and did not make her smaller. The blade warmed between them, answering both pulse and oath. Ethan looked up at her. That'll make landing complicated. Most true things do. You sure? Her silver-violet eyes held his, alien and steady, beautiful in a way no human face could be. Today I survived several certain things. I prefer this uncertainty. Grace made a small sound from the cockpit and pretended it was a warning light. Ethan rested his good hand on the blade at last, open-palmed, careful with its weight. I don't know your oath words. Soraya lowered herself beside him, not above him, not behind him, close enough that her shoulder nearly touched his splinted arm. Good. Humans would shorten them. Probably put them on a patch. You would be punished. Fair. Dawn spread thin and gold across the forward glass. Below waited hearings, reports, angry houses, and careful attempts to turn survival into something easier to manage. None of it vanished because one human had refused to take a weapon from a trapped commander, or because one Valkyrie had later chosen to place it in his hands. But the blade rested between them, warm with 2 living heartbeats, and Soraya sat beside Ethan as the skiff carried them toward the harder work of remaining alive. He had not conquered her. He had simply held her honor gently enough for her to choose living. Thank you for watching until the end. If this story stayed with you, share your thoughts in the comments and tell us which moment hit the hardest. Subscribe to Intergalactic Untold for more emotional HFY stories, cinematic sci-fi journeys, and quiet human courage among the stars.